Thinking about moving to Montana? Curious what winter is really like? It can't possibly be that bad, right? Is it really 7 months long? Lots of new folks have moved here over the last couple of years or are thinking about moving here. Many of them from warmer states like California or Texas. And they move here for a variety of reasons. More open space, the scenery and the views, quality of life, but sometimes they don't take into full consideration what winter is really like. Plus, Forbes, Powder Magazine, and all these other large publications have put out articles recently about how amazing Bozeman is. And it is pretty amazing until the snow starts flying in mid-October or late October and surprises everyone who's not used to that yet. So if you're thinking about moving to Bozeman or anywhere in Montana, let's dive right into what it's really like and some tips on surviving winter here in Montana. My name is Hallie with Life in Bozeman, Montana, a channel all about living in and around the Bozeman area here in Southwest Montana, from Big Sky to Three Forks to Ennis to Livingston. So let's dive right in and talk about some of the important things to know about winter here in Montana. First, let's talk temperatures. December, January, and sometimes February are typically the coldest months here in Montana. January's average low in Bozeman is about 12 degrees, with an average high of about 31 degrees. And some years are going to be milder than others. This year has gotten off to a particularly slow start with the snow and the cold. We got some snow in late October, but we haven't really seen a whole lot down in the valley here since then. So despite this mild December that we've been having, don't be fooled. The cold and snow is definitely coming. And the weather forecasts? They're merely a suggestion most of the time and have been known to change quickly as unanticipated weather rolls in. Bozeman and most of Southwest Montana is considered an arid mountain region. The average humidity doesn't vary much throughout the year, and the perceived humidity level definitely hovers around 0 most of the year. Now, the actual humidity is usually closer to about 20%, and when it goes higher than that, we definitely tend to notice. But the perception is it feels very dry most of the time. And that is definitely one reason that Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley or Gallatin County are well known for the outdoor winter activities, because the moisture content or the moisture level in the snow is very low, makes for some very light fluffy powder. Winter weather and snowstorms can be intense. Sometimes the snow comes down pretty fast and we can see as much as a foot in, overnight or even in a day. And sometimes after a good snowstorm, we'll see those clouds clear out and the skies are bright blue, absolutely beautiful. And then the temperatures will start to drop. We'll often see that extreme cold come through the area or through the state at least once per winter, where the temperatures drop well below 0, and it can actually become dangerous to be outside for too long or with too much exposure. Last year, right before Christmas, Bozeman and the entire state saw temperatures hovering around -30, -40, and that wasn't even considering wind chill. In some areas with wind chill, it got down to -60 or -70. Now, it didn't last very long, just a few days, but it can be quite the shock if you're not prepared. Now, of course, when it's 30 below, there's not a lot you can do. Mostly you're just getting from your house to your car and your car to your place of work or school or whatever that may be. But there are some pretty cool things that you can do when it's that cold outside. For instance, you can take a pot of boiling hot water outside, throw it in the air, and it instantly turns to snow or evaporates. Creates this, cloud, if you will, that floats away from you. It's also the same reason that you'll see rivers around the area, rivers or lakes that start to evaporate, and you'll see clouds or steam hovering over those rivers when it gets that cold. So while the winters here can be long and brutal, those cold snaps don't last too long. So when it's not 30 below outside and the wind isn't howling, it's best if you can learn to embrace winter and get outside and find some way to enjoy it. If you ski or snowboard or have other winter activities, you're already in a great place. And maybe there's something you haven't yet discovered. It's important to find things to help keep your spirits high through those long and dark winter months. I'm going to touch on some of the amazing things there are to do outside as well as indoors here in just a little bit. Now, for snowfall, it varies widely depending on where you're located. Even across the Gallatin Valley, there could just be a dusting of snow on the west side, and then there's maybe several inches or more down on the south side closer to the mountains, and then maybe double or triple that much up in the Bridgers or down towards Big Sky. Overall, Bozeman tends to see an average of 63 to 84 inches of snow per winter, whereas the Bridger Bowl ski area to the north of Bozeman sees about 300 inches a year, and Big Sky Resort down to the south at a higher elevation tends to see upwards of 400 inches of snow per year. And another important thing to keep in mind around here is that there really aren't any snow days in Montana. Montana folks know that winter isn't going anywhere. The city and county do their best to stay on top of snow removal all over the area, and school bus drivers know how to drive in inclement weather like a snowstorm or when there's ice or snow on the ground. So life keeps on keeping on throughout it all. Growing up here, we may have had maybe 1 or 2 days of school called off due to weather, and usually that was due to the dangerously low temperatures as opposed to any amount of snow or what the roads were really like. It's pretty typical that school keeps going and jobs are going to expect you to be there at work despite what the weather is doing. Now, before we dive into some of the tips on surviving it all and some things to do in winter, as I said, my name is Hallie. I'm a born and raised Bozemanite, helping people to move, relocate, and simply find their place here in Southwest Montana and the beautiful area surrounding Bozeman. My email and phone number are right here, or you can visit the link in the description to learn a little bit more or get in touch, and we can schedule a one-on-one call either way. I'm here to help you find the right place for you. I certainly wouldn't want you to end up in the wrong spot. So jot that information down and feel free to reach out. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I've got a new video every single week. So if you want the best videos all about living in and around the Bozeman area and all over Southwest Montana, subscribe. So with that, the first tip on surviving winter here in Bozeman is to get ready for the long haul. The first snow is always kind of magical around here with the bright white on the mountains against the bright blue of the Big Sky state. It's never not beautiful. And everyone starts to get excited for the season to come. Those who have gardens at home or even greenhouses, those start to get cleaned up and harvested by sometime in September. And you may even see garden stores and greenhouses start their end of season sales as early as mid-July. The trees and shrubs do need some time to get acclimated to the soil before things start to freeze and get too cold. So it's important with that first snow to keep that enthusiasm up, as you'll need it come late spring when the snow is still falling. And in the middle of winter, the days are definitely shorter, with the sun setting around 4:45 in the afternoon and not coming up again until around 8 a.m. So it's best to prepare yourself and know that it's going to be a long haul, but it's going to be absolutely beautiful along the way. The next item is that snow removal is no joke. Invest in a snow thrower or at least a good shovel if you haven't already. There are city requirements for snow removal on your sidewalks within 24 hours of the snowfall, and you'll find that a lot of people around here don't stop running or going for walks or taking their dog for a walk just because there's snow on the ground. So it's definitely best to stay on top of it. Plus, if you wait too long, it just turns to ice or gets packed down and becomes that much harder to remove. So in that sense, it's always best to stay on top of your driveway as well. Otherwise, it can become a really daunting project if you've driven over it or it's had a chance to, melt a little bit and then freeze over again and get really packed down. The next item is that driving in winter takes experience. It can take some time to learn, and it can be really intimidating if you're new to it. So give yourself extra time to get anywhere you're trying to go. It can take much longer than usual, so be patient, give the driver ahead of you plenty of space, and be sure to clean off the snow or ice or frost on your windshield and the rest of your car, as well as your headlights, before you head out. Everything takes a gentler touch, starting, stopping, and turning. So just slow down and give yourself the time to make the turn or to stop, and give yourself lots of space ahead of you. Having 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive and some winter tires can make a big difference too. And there's a wide selection of different options there, from studded tires to heavy treaded tires. There are a lot of different kinds to choose from. But either way, go slow, take your time, and don't slam on the brakes too hard, because even the best snow tires or winter tires aren't going to prevent you from sliding in that kind of situation. Certain areas will almost always have at least snowpack or ice on the roads, particularly areas where there's little sunlight that can reach the roads. In a canyon, for instance, particularly headed towards Big Sky in the Gallatin Canyon is a great example of this. Not only does the area tend to get more snow, there's less sunlight and often areas where wind will push snow across the road from the ditches on either side. And when there's an active storm, of course, the visibility is affected as well. Whether it's the amount of snow coming down, or maybe you're just driving an area where it's cold and snowy and there's a lot of fresh snow that's kind of floating around in the air, and you go past a semi going the other direction, that can create momentary whiteout type conditions. There are webcams and resources on the Montana Department of Transportation website and app that will help you get a feel for the conditions of the roads themselves, as well as any accidents, incidents, or closures there might be before you head out. And did I mention addition, it's best to take your time. There's a reason that you'll hear that from a lot of people, including myself, over and over again. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get where you're going and you're not in a rush. The next thing on the list is a winter wardrobe update. You're gonna need some winter gear, and maybe even a lot of winter gear. When you live in Montana, you're gonna need good hats, gloves, boots, jackets, of course, and snow pants, and then underlayers to keep you warm as well. Thankfully, there's plenty of outdoor shops all over the Bozeman area, from REI to Bob Ward's, and several great small shops like Chalet Sports and the Roundhouse. And of course, there's always the Patagonia outlet down in the Dillon area. Despite the Patagucci stigma, quality definitely matters. And there are several secondhand options all over the area if you're on more of a budget. On top of having those things, keep spare gear in your car. Best practice is to keep a shovel, a spare coat, hat, gloves, and other winter items in your car for yourself and your kids just in case. And that's in addition to any other emergency kit type items that you may already have. Good things to have, of course, are a blanket or a sleeping bag and a tow rope. And keep in mind that some areas have very limited cell coverage, so it's best to have a plan or let someone know where you're headed. The safest bet is to have those supplies with you, things to keep you warm, because you never know when you may end up stuck or in a ditch. And while a lot of Montanans would be happy to help pull you out, you just don't know when that might happen. Now let's dive into some of the amazing things to do around here in winter. For those who prefer not to do the outdoor activities quite so much, there are plenty of things to do indoors as well. The Museum of the Rockies always has amazing rotating exhibits and fun things to do. And of course, there's places like Jump Time, where it's an indoor trampoline style place where you can go in there, bring your kids, burn off some energy. And a great cup of hot cocoa or coffee or tea can be found at so many amazing coffee shops and other places all over town. And for those looking to warm up a little bit with some hot springs, we've got some great options, one right here in the valley and a couple others not too far away. Bozeman Hot Springs in the winter, with all of their lights and their lovely outdoor pools, can be absolutely heavenly. Of course, there's Nora's Hot Springs to the west, just a little ways out of town, maybe 20 or 30 minutes as well, that often has some incredible live music. And Chico Hot Springs, about an hour away just south of Livingston, is lovely as well. There are also some great local events that happen during the winter here. Bozeman has the Christmas Stroll, and Belgrade has this amazing Christmas Convoy, both of which happen in early December to kick off the winter season. And the Winter Farmers Market in Bozeman happens at the fairgrounds, with lots of great local options and a really cozy atmosphere. One of my favorite things to do in winter, aside from going snowboarding, is to get out on the trail. There's just something so beautiful about getting out there with some snowshoes in the peace and quiet, with the snow sparkling all around you. There's just an incredible quiet and calm about getting out there and hiking during winter. Unless, of course, there's an active storm happening, not quite as quiet or pleasant. Snowmobiling in the area is great as well, especially down south of town in the Big Sky or West Yellowstone areas. And then, of course, there's plenty of sledding hills all over town. There's ice climbing, ice skating, ice fishing, and those hot springs that are all fun during the winter months. And not to be forgotten, the ski areas around here are phenomenal. Bridger Bowl is a local favorite, just 20 or 30 minutes to the north of town, known for the idea of skiing the cold smoke, which is this amazing cold powder that they get every single winter. When that powder comes, you'll see people lined up down the highway headed towards Bridger Bowl to enjoy an amazing powder day. And of course, there's Big Sky Resort about an hour south of town. With more than 5,800 skiable acres of terrain, Big Sky is absolutely amazing, and their brand new tram launches this month, December of 2023, with a higher capacity. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So I'm curious, did I miss anything? What's your favorite thing to do in winter? Please go ahead and leave those in the comments below. One final thing I wanted to touch on today that's going to be really important to keep in mind is about buying a home in winter. Winter tends to be the slower season here in Montana and a lot of other northern states, which means there's a little bit less inventory, but the buyers that are out there tend to be pretty serious. And there's definitely some things to keep in mind as you're searching for a home. As I said, there's less inventory, but there also tends to be less competition. But something you'll definitely want to do is get a solid home inspection during the home buying process. taking a look at the roof, the insulation, the windows. All of those things are important to keep you safe and warm during a cold Montana winter, and without having to spend a fortune on utilities. Also, think about where the home is and which way that it's facing. If you're in the foothills or in a canyon, you're gonna have far less sunlight depending on which way you're facing or where you are. A south-facing home or south-facing slope is gonna get a lot more sunlight than one that is north-facing. And there are some areas on the south end of town in particular with north-facing slopes or north-facing homes where the sun doesn't touch their property from about November until March. Even having your driveway south or west facing is gonna make a difference in terms of that snow clearing and letting the sun do a little bit of the work for you. Another thing with buying or owning a home in winter here is to make sure you prevent your pipes from freezing during the winter. When it gets really, really cold outside, you'd be surprised what can happen if there's a little bit of exposure to the outside walls of your house. They can freeze when it gets really, really cold, but there are certain things that you can do to prevent that if you know you've got a pipe on, an exterior wall. And you'll definitely want to take those preventative actions because a frozen pipe can cause a lot of problems and damage. If that pipe were to burst, you're definitely going to have water everywhere. Now, with all of these words of caution and survival tips, winter really is a beautiful season in Montana, and you can learn to love it and embrace it and be prepared for it if it's truly where you want to be. I've got lots of other videos about living in and around Bozeman and the surrounding areas here in Southwest Montana. So if you're curious to learn more, be sure to check those out. And if you want to watch more right now, this is a playlist loaded with all the best videos about the pros and cons of living here all over Southwest Montana. And until next time, stay warm, and I hope to show you around town.